Okay, so one of my favorite topics of all is autophagy. So why am I talking about autophagy? Because it relates to fasting and intermittent fasting. It is the one way you can get into autophagy. And it's a topic I told you I would talk about. So really, what is autophagy? Autophagy is when all of your damaged and old cells in your body are rid of. It's almost like you wash all of them down into a garbage disposal and you get rid of them out of your body. That's what happens when you go into autophagy. So the little liposome layer, this little layer that's on the outside of your cells and outside of your proteins, it breaks open. And especially those that are damaged and old, and they will push out those organelles. They have little organs on the inside, and they get pushed out into the bloodstream and they get burned, and you get rid of them. And you burn them during autophagy. So why is that even significant? Think about it. It actually will help you stay away from a lot of different chronic diseases like arthritis. It actually helps you protect your cardiac muscle, your neurons, and your brain, and in all the areas of your body. But your brain oftentimes does get affected by different chronic diseases. It gets rid of viruses and pathogens. And the other thing that it does that I want you to hear, it helps to get rid of cancer cells. So the number one reason that a person should have an interest in getting into autophagy, which you get into that with fasting and intermittent fasting, is to prevent and ward off cancer. So I want you to think for a moment about what we call the mitochondria. Most of those are found in your liver, but they're found all over in your body. And that's where our ATP, or what we call energy, is that we draw from. That's where we get our energy, is from the mitochondria. And the mitochondria relies heavily on oxygen to survive. But what we've found is that that's not necessarily the case with cancer cells. So when they begin to multiply and increase in the body, creating tumors, they don't need oxygen. They actually are oftentimes from old cells, and those old cells can multiply, and they can do it without oxygen. But what do those cancer cells like? They like glucose. They love glucose. And what's happening during fasting and intermittent fasting is that you're not putting glucose into your body. Things that produce glucose into your bodies, like sugars and carbohydrates that increase your glucose levels, that increase your insulin, and sometimes leads to insulin resistance. So the one thing that intermittent fasting and fasting can do, it can actually decrease your insulin resistance, almost eliminating it in some cases, but it also is starving your cancer cells. What I thought was really, really interesting, you've heard of CAT scans, MRIs, and PET scans. PET scans are done to really go and evaluate if cancer has spread from, say, a primary tumor. And they'll look for hot spots. What do they look for in those hot spots? They're looking for glucose uptake. So they're looking for isolated spots of heavy amounts of glucose at those sites. So that's why that cancer cells thrive on glucose. So, it makes me, when I first learned all of that, it's like, I don't want sugar anymore. And I certainly, and I'm a sugar addict. I love sugar, spoons full of it. But what I did when I learned that, and I never learned that in nursing school, and I was a nurse for over 30 years and didn't realize that. So it is a huge, huge thing to really think about. The one and the biggest thing is preventing that. The other thing is that when you see different degenerative diseases that we see in the brain, like Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, you actually see in the brain, you'll see folding of those cells, defective cells, that are creating those chronic, debilitating diseases. So protecting our neurons in our brain is so important, and you can do that by getting into autophagy when you're fasting and intermittent fasting. So in summary, autophagy. It is a garbage can or garbage disposal process of getting rid of the garbage in our bodies. It is our greatest opportunity to protect our brain, to protect our cardiac cells. And the other part of it is that during this process, you increase growth hormones, and those growth hormones actually help to stimulate new stem cells and new cells to grow. So how do you get into autophagy? Fasting and intermittent fasting. We don't really know how long it takes. I mean, there's a lot in the literature that says that you can get there at about 18 hours of fasting. So if you're on an 18-6 schedule like I do every day, you are going to have an opportunity to get rid of yucky cells that you do not want in your body. So join me and my group that I'm planning in January with my partner, Tracy. We're going to be putting together fasting groups. I'm going to teach you how to fast. I learned 5 years ago, and I haven't been a good girl all the time through my fasting experiences, but I keep learning every day something new about fasting and intermittent fasting, and I want to be able to share that gift to all of you. But if you really want health, fasting and intermittent fasting will get you there. DM me, and follow us. Follow me on this site and on my YouTube site. I am going to be on here all the time talking about other fasting opportunities for you. I want you to find the success that I have with fasting and intermittent fasting. It's a gift.